Hi, my name is Brendan Lucas. I'm the Legacy Project Manager for the Outfest UCLA Legacy Project. And I'm thrilled to be introducing our Outfest OnDemand and Outsider Pictures co-presentation of Jose, directed by Lee Chang, written and co-produced by Lee Chang and Georgia Robertson, and starring Enrique Salonic and Manolo Herrera. Jose was the winner of the prestigious Queer Lion at the 2018 Venice Film Festival, and it was a hit with our audiences at both the Outfest Fusion LGBTQ People of Color Film Festival and Outfest Los Angeles in 2019. We're very proud to welcome this remarkable film back to our Outfest audience, having screened at 50 countries and at over 100 film festivals around the world. Jose recently enjoyed a theatrical run here in the United States in January and February of 2020, just before the emergence of COVID here in the US. Director Lee Chang was touring with the film, but I missed his Los Angeles appearance, so I jumped at the opportunity to have a Zoom conversation with him from Cape Town, South Africa, where he's currently sheltering in place due to the pandemic, after intending to visit the country for only a short while to research his next project with his collaborator, co-producer, and co-screenwriter, Georgia Robertson. I was thrilled to also have the chance to talk with the star of the film, Enrique Salonic, who joined our call from his native Guatemala, where he resides with his family. Enrique was sadly unable to tour the United States with the film after his non-immigrant visa application was denied multiple times by the US Department of State. Despite having studied abroad in Canada and the United States and touring extensively with the film in Europe and Latin America, and even with a letter of support from US Congressman Ted Lieu, Enrique's rejection letter stated, quote, "You have not demonstrated that you have the ties that will compel you to return to your home country after your travel to the United States," unquote. Enrique's real-life ordeal underscores the often absurd, arbitrary, and prejudicially motivated application of US immigration policy, which should give us pause as we consider the conditions that would bring someone like Jose to the difficult decision to leave his own home country, as explored in the film. Jose is daring in its frank but often tender depictions of sexuality and intimacy that we are unaccustomed to in conventional depictions of queer lust and romance, not only because of its visual style and its underrepresented setting within a Central American context, but because the kinds of bodies and relationships it presents us with remain absent from the more mainstream fare that we experience both in the US and internationally. Co-writers Lee Chang and Georgia Robertson spent a year traveling throughout Latin America, starting in Sao Paulo, gathering and recording experiences of young people from 20 different cities. They asked their subjects a similar set of questions, including, who is the most important person in your life? What is your most unforgettable memory? And have you ever been in love? Ultimately discovering recurring themes of loss, connection, love, hardship, and doubt from among their diverse interviewees. Having lived in Guatemala for over 2 years, the filmmakers settled on Guatemala City as the locale for their neorealist inspired film, not only because of what they perceived to be the urgency of the situation of LGBTQ people living in Guatemala, but also because of the country's overwhelming youth population. For the filmmakers, it represented the greatest opportunity to impart a necessary vision of social change in a country that had suffered over 3 decades of civil war. They were further emboldened by what they perceived as the expanding social conservatism, patriarchal attitudes, and homophobia that they observed in a country increasingly torn between traditional Roman Catholicism and the growing influence of hardline evangelical Christianity, often bolstered and exported with missionary zeal by the religious right in the United States. Chang states that his cinematic influences include the films of Hu Xiaoshen and Satyajit Ray, and his potent blending of neorealism and ethnography, of pathos and humanity, has created a moving portrait of a queer person faced with the enormity of his circumstances, while at the same time opening a door for young people who are eager for self-examination and social change with this much lauded and internationally recognized film. We hope you enjoy our online presentation of Jose, and we want to give special thanks to the distributor of the film, Outsider Pictures, for making this co-presentation possible. We at Outfest look forward to seeing you again at the movies really soon, but until that time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please enjoy Jose.
It's my pleasure on behalf of Outfest Los Angeles, to welcome our 2 guests here today to talk about their film, Jose. We have director Lee Chang, who's visiting us from Cape Town in South Africa. We also have the star of the film, Enrique Salonic, who's joining us both via Zoom. He's in Guatemala. So welcome, guys.
Hi, guys. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for being here. We're really fortunate to be able to welcome you both, unfortunately under remote circumstances, but I guess first off the bat, I just wanted to check in and see literally where you are physically and how you're doing.
Well, I'm still in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm stuck here for seventh week of lockdown. Was very strict, and now we have level 4, and the positive case for virus is still rising every day, and still in a very bad situation. As my producer and George and I, we led really a nomad life. Last 4 years, we have been travel and film. That's our major theme of our life. Now it's completely stopped. So I'm managing to maintain my physical and mental health, and try to bring some peace to myself and to other people. Also, in my own work, I'm trying very hard to write. As we travel on the film, we don't know where our next destinations are in the current situation. So I am working to write something more universal, philosophical, and that the story can happen in anywhere of the world.
But certainly interesting conditions under which to write a different kind of story. Enrique, how are you, and where are you?
Hi, I'm good, safe and sound. Thanks to life, I'm surrounded by my family, and so far, like I think everywhere in the world, in Guatemala, we are under curfew and under quarantine. So our president is trying to do its best to contain this pandemic, and yeah, like many of my friends and my family, we like our plans for most of this year and projects have been stopped, and financially so very it's not doing very well yet. We are trying to do our best to keep our mental health in good in in good health, and also trying to support each other in within our communities. I don't live in Guatemala City. I live like 200 kilometers away, uh, north northwest from Guatemala City, and it's a little small town where we have, like, thanks to life, we haven't had any cases in our town, but and people are trying to be as cautious as possible. But so far, I am doing well.
Glad to hear that you're doing well and you're hanging in there, both of you. The film has had an interesting road to being available in different formats. First on like the festival circuit, you won the very prestigious Queer Lion Award at Venice, which was really exciting. But that and it's been sort of a long road. You've had success on the festival circuit, and you had started like a theatrical run, including here in Los Angeles at the beginning of the year. And then the production and the tour kind of ran into some problems, specifically with getting Enrique to the US, which is really emblematic of the kind of story and conditions that you're dealing with in the film. Did you want to talk a little bit about the situation of what happened and why we didn't get to see you? It was one of the like disappointments of seeing this incredible film, having the opportunity to see it in the US, and then one of the major components of the film, the lead actor, Jose Enrique, wasn't able to come.
Yes, it's certainly been an exciting road since we won the Queer Lion at Venice. It was a very surprising and very memorable time to have been awarded with such honor. And since then, the movie and the project itself has had a very wonderful road and very great acceptance throughout the world. People have been very nice and receiving this movie because they have, in some way, they can relate to the story that is being portrayed in this film. And the now, due to the pandemic, we have like its way throughout festivals have been stopped. Yet, I guess Lee is more aware of this situation, that the film is finding new ways in how to be promoted, and find its way through people's homes. And in my case, the fact that I was denied the entry in the United States was a bit frustrating and disappointing, given the circumstances and the fact that I study and work there, and I didn't do anything anything bad enough for me to be like not being allowed there. And I think it's due to the political reasons that are happening there. Now that we have Trump in power and all its laws and interferences for people who want to be there. And in my case, I just wanted to promote the movie, give a voice to Jose. And yet, I think my application was not accepted, even after the second time when I had the support from a congressman. I think it was Lou, the congressman,
Ted
who
Lieu.
sent a letter to yes, who sent a letter to the embassy here in Guatemala City. And people like the lady who interviewed me didn't believe that a congressman would have sent a letter to intervene for me, and she didn't even bother to check if there was a letter. She just assumed that I was lying. And well, I think the first time that I was denied the visa, it was more frustrating than the second time. The second time, I think I had more peace with me, that I could carry on with that. And at the end, I think the good side of it is that it gave a lot of voice to the movie as well, because we made it to the news and people were hearing more about it due to the visa denial. And I am also grateful because of the support that I received from my friends there in the US, and the support that I received from Lee and George, and from Outsider Pictures as well, who were who were there for me, constantly asking if I was doing okay, and trying to find interviews with newspapers and social media in the United States. And for that, I'm very grateful.
It was remarkable that when I was thinking about it, I was upset when I learned the news. I mean, I saw your name and the film and in the news, and it popped up. But it struck me because it was, this was, to promote a film, and you think about all of the people who are coming to work and live, be reunited with their families, and the interference that they're facing, that not even someone, with a letter from a US congressperson could do a temporary artistic tour with a film. But it's interesting to think about that in the context of the themes of the movie. Lee, I wanted to ask you about the process of writing this story with your co-writer and co-producer George, and the process of gathering some of the stories that went into this final film, because I think it's a really amazing background, and it lends so much reality to this film.
Yes. So the project started like in 2016, and when Trump was elected, and that's the time we're leaving US, we decided to do something good, build up a bridge for the connection, build up between different cultures, different countries, different people. So we went to 20 largest Latin American cities, starting with Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we started the interview hundreds of young guys. At first, we didn't really focus on gay guys, but as time went on, and we taught a lot of gay guys in a country like Brazil has very progressive gay rights in Latin American countries is one of the top. But still have a lot of difficult for the young guys to deal with the social and family pressures. So that brought our big interest, what's the situation in other countries. So we just kept traveling and visiting different places, and we ended up in Guatemala, and we did feel that the Guatemala has such a young youth culture with half the people under the age of 19, but in the meantime has such a poor population, and as well as a lot of violence, and also the Civil War's influence, which, by the way, Civil War was supported by U.S., lasted 36 years, and really left the violence normalized, and people are really suffering. And also the religious influence was split between Catholic and the evangelic forces, and young people are really struggling there. So we interviewed the most people we interviewed in Guatemala City, and we did talk to them one by one, and we did hear a lot of tragic stories about their coming out story, their story of losing the love, and also because it's already so difficult to maintain, to start a romantic relationship. So it's really brought up our a lot of sympathy and feel kind of responsibility also as both George and I, we are Americans. We feel like we've got to do something in Guatemala to support the community, not just like gay people, but in a majority level. So we also in the theme that you were talking about, we really focus on the majority of the population, which is mixed or indigenous background, and the dark-skinned people, and the young people, poor people, working class people. So so it's really just try to give these young people a chance, and now we see a very talented actor there, and they couldn't even come to the U.S. for the premiere. So it just shows the reality is very harsh and brutal for the young people, and also on the other side, really justify what we did is right, and we there's still a long way to go with this pandemic going on, and things are going to get worse. So for us artists, and the resistance, the fight has to continue, and we have to even be even stronger to stand together, to speak out, to work together, to collaborate, to help other people.
I think a word that you've used in interviews, Lee, is urgency. Like, one of the reasons why you focused on Guatemala and setting the film in Guatemala and doing it very consciously was the urgency of the situation. And I think that plays out in the lives of the characters as well in terms of making these decisions, especially with Manolo's character, Luis, where he's just like, he's on to the next thing. He's thinking about, completely quitting his life in this country and going elsewhere, and not feeling the attachment, is wanting to move on, just completely overcoming the potential relationship that's happening in Guatemala when he meets Jose. And I thought that was really powerful, and I think you're rightfully driven by movement. I think that makes sense. And I was interested thinking about, because you mentioned the Guatemalan Civil War. I mean, over 3 decades of protracted fighting. And one thing that struck me in rewatching the film, and when I first saw it, was this intergenerational connection in an LGBT story between Jose and his mom, but also his grandmother. And I wanted to ask you both about how you found the actress who played Jose's grandmother, because I thought the story that she shared when Jose goes out and visits her and is working, and there's so many things in the film that are sort of oblique kind of background references that fill in the world and really explore the themes that you're talking about. Could you talk about how you cast her and the nature of that story?
Sure. And I really thank you for this question, because nobody else asked for all these 3 years, different interviews, and great. So it's quite tough to cast her, and quite tough to cast this role, because on one hand, Guatemala has a very small film industry. On the other hand, this is it's a little bit difficult role. We in a very original thought, we really want to portray the very wise Latino old woman. That is the woman is so plays such an important role in Latino culture. In a way, I feel like the woman's role is more dominant, more influential in the Latino culture than men's roles. So this is super important role for me, that you maybe you cannot learn from your mother, but maybe you can learn from your grandmother, the older generation. And the cost was very difficult. We couldn't find many choices at all. We did in car. We have this public social media casting, and very few people came. At the end, one of my associate producer, his name is Willie De Leon. He's a great producer, by the way, and his grandma. He said, "Oh, hi, grandma. He's a little bit like that rule that you on your script," and so brought her in. I was like, "Oh yeah, perfect." We took a photo with him and Enrique and his mom, the role three together. They just look like a family. So we are very happy for her. But like a few days, like maybe 2 days or 3 days before the shoot, and Willie told me that his grandma went to the hospital because he was so desperate to memorize all the lines and being so stressed and got sick in the hospital. So she cannot come. So we really felt bad because
Oh no.
it's kind of because as she ended up okay right away, like a few days after and at the hospital, but for us we felt kind of guilty. But still we look for our casting videos. We found another lady, and she has very interesting background, and she's just like the Jose the grandmother in the role that she has different very short relationship with different people and really end up single for most of her life. And her granddaughter saw the social media casting advertisement and talked to her, like brought her all the way in to our casting, and she did very well. But we thought for the appearance, Willie's grandmother is better, so we chose her at first. But now she's sick, and so we brought her in, and we were like, well, we just I know she's quite old. I think it's like almost 70 years, 70 or something. And we just took you to this. The shooting location is quite far from Guatemala City. That's where she lives. It was like at least 2-3 hours drive. So we were like, oh, we just went over there and we shoot for 2 days and we'll brought you back. Is that okay? She's like, okay, I can go myself. So she's very strong and very cooperative and really, to me, did a great job. And we had actually, I don't want to keep saying that we have a lot of great footage about her, besides the only short 5 minute scene in the movie. But she's a great actress. I mean, there's so many talented actors in Guatemala. I did feel really blessed and feel very lucky.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and Enrique, I'll address this to you, because the film hasn't been seen in Guatemala yet, really, right?
We did actually have a
it?
premiere last year, yeah, in November. Last November, we had this LGBT film festival in Guatemala City, and we had 2 big theaters all filled up with people, and the organizer, organized a red carpet for all the actor and cast and crew, and took a great photo with the media release, and that very well, very positive reviews afterwards too.
Congratulations. That was something, I'm glad we're having this update because that's something that I was still contending with. I couldn't believe. And Lee, you had said there was concern about, the actors, how it would be received there. Enrique, you have talked about a little bit in interviews, and Lee as well, about the nature of colorism and racism in Guatemalan media. I mean, it's a problem throughout the Americas and in Latin America and North America. Could you talk about being part of a largely brown cast, but also having to do some really intimate scenes? I mean, I think having shown the film in Los Angeles twice through Outfest and Outfest Fusion, I think there was a really positive reaction from audiences seeing intimacy on screen, also largely a cast that was like brown local actors, indigenous actors. Could you talk about what it's been like, I guess, sort of representing, but also working with a largely person of color cast?
Of course. Yes, I think uh, I am very grateful for Lee for giving us this opportunity and seeing outside the box, because usually we are feed with Hollywood movies. I'm not saying they are bad. I'm just saying that we have a specific stereotype or what to expect from movies, and when they don't fit that standard, usually we get a reaction that usually is not as welcoming as if it were a white person or with brown hair, etc. But having the privilege to be part of this movie, especially being the protagonist and giving the voice to many people, not only in Guatemala, but uh, around the world, uh, for people who are not usually seen on the big screen, it's a huge responsibility. And like you said, racism and discrimination is very palpable every day. Although it's not very visible, it has evolved and adapted to this 21st century. Uh, when you are aware of the many ways that like there are mini racisms and micro racisms happening every day, and when you are aware of that, you can see them, and you have to be, well, in my case, I have to be aware and conscious in how to choose my own battles, because I cannot fight every single battle that comes my way. But I think being part of this movie was my way of saying to the world that uh, people with people, no matter their skin color, uh, can do whatever they dream of doing if they work really hard. And I think also Lee had what surprised me a lot and what encouraged me the most also was to meet Lee and George, who had a very, very welcoming and very great energy, very contagious. That uh, uh, because at the beginning I was kind of skeptical about this movie when I first met them, or when I first heard the story. Yet when I met them, when I met their enthusiasm, their energy, and their commitment to do this movie, I say, okay, it's time to make this movie. It's time to give a voice to the voiceless. And I think when we had those intimate scenes, or when we were on the public, and it was very, I think, a mixture of emotions. It was I was excited about the scenes being recorded, but also there was a subtle pressure on me of doing it right. But I usually didn't think it too much. I somehow, throughout the way, I discovered that the uh, the things were going, the actions were going to unfold themselves as they should, and they did. And it has make a good way for Jose to be spread around the world. And although yes, there is a lot of racism and discrimination around the world, I think this kind of movies, this kind of actions, this kind of production uh, is making a change in the world. It's putting a seed in the world for future generations to not be afraid to fight for what is right, to fight for justice, for equality, and to give a voice to every single person that usually is behind the curtains, that is not seen, not because they don't want to be seen, but because we hide the ugly part. We hide the part that is not as well. It's not so visited, or it's not so appreciated as the expectations that throughout these many years. For example, Hollywood or or Western countries have imposed in Latin America or other underdeveloping countries.
Well, the film has a very worthy representative. I know it's a big responsibility and having acted in the film, but also to have to represent it and suddenly become sort of a spokesperson. But it's your enthusiasm for it is clear both in the work and in talking about the film. So I think we're starting to run up against our time limit. So I wanted to thank you both. There's two things. So the film is going to be online through Outfest OnDemand on May 15th. So hopefully if you're watching this, you will have already watched the film and got to experience it and been moved by it. Lee, I don't know if you want to talk about where else the film will be able to be seen, if you can share that yet. And then also if there's anything either of you would like to say or share, or just remind people to close us out.
Sure. Regarding intimacy, and I want to add one more words about this. And with this virus going on, the pandemic, and may well have permanently changing our life forever, and this intimacy is even more important. I keep seeing this when I was talking to the audience in the theaters. I was seeing, for me, personally, intimacy is the last land of humanity, and so it's the touching each other, kissing, hugging, caressing each other, the extending to physical and mental connection with each other is the most beautiful thing with humanity. To me, it's something really have to fight to defend. With this pandemic going on, I think it's the future don't look too good to me. But again, we have to be hopeful and be positive and keep fighting and resisting. And I hope my next project will keep exploring this theme, as well as other very important theme will come along with this current situation. So thank you very much, Brenda, and nice seeing you, Kiki, again. And we're very grateful.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for doing this. Enrique?
Yes, I just also want to thank Brendan and Lee for your time and energy, and for every single person who have watched Jose and every person who's going to watch it again. And I invite you to invite your friends and family to watch this movie. A very eye-opening movie, I think. And I also want to thank all those directors that are everywhere, you know. I think I want to clarify that I didn't want to say, I didn't want to put Hollywood in a bad side. I just wanted to say that sometimes that's the image we get, because there are great directors in Hollywood who put people that are usually voiceless and put them on the big screen. So thank you for that encouragement, and also for making people, ordinary people, dream big. And directors such as Lee and many other people around the world, and people like yourselves, Brendan, who believe in our work, who you spend a very valuable time with us, interviewing us. And yes, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope the movie also gets in Guatemala, because I get asked many times, constantly, almost every day, when is Jose coming to Guatemala in many platforms. I tell them it's coming, just be patient. We are trying to give a voice to Jose, and we have to do it step by step. And they say, okay. But yes, thank you so much for this time.
Life always finds ways of making things interesting and throwing obstacles, but life also finds a way, I guess. So
I want to add one more point, Brenda. Sorry about that. And,
no, go ahead.
Jose is going to show in more than 20 virtual theaters in the US. We are very excited by this, and in very small towns in different states of US, and we are showing it. It's doing very well, and starting May 15th. And if any audience need any information, just go to outsiders.us/Jose. As you will see a list of virtual cinemas. They vary from different prices. I guess anybody who has a VPN or you are US live in US, you should be able to reach any of those cinemas. So if you're not in one of those audience groups, feel free to choose anything that fit your price and watch it with your lover or by yourself. And you know, you can find anybody can find a piece of Jose in themselves.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Well, thank you to you both for your incredible film, for taking the time to talk to us today at Outfest, for making the film available, and bit by bit, I think everybody who wants to see this movie should, and who needs to see it should. Maybe people who don't know that they want to see it should also see it. But thanks so much. I think you really opened a tremendous door for people both in Guatemala and internationally, and for LGBT people who see themselves in the characters that you presented and the stories that you gathered. I just want to say thank you. So thanks again.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
Care.
Be in touch.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks so much.